Hey, and welcome back to the #1 podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 136. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't have a lot to talk about this week. And I know I say that a lot, but I genuinely have, one thing I want to talk about. I basically spent the entirety of since the last podcast, I basically spent all of my time finishing the Osamu Sato video. So I just didn't have time. My whole life for a week was wake up and edit and then recover by watching YouTube videos in bed and falling asleep. And that was my entire life for about a week. So I'm young and I have a spring in my step, so I can afford to kind of do that without dying, mostly. So I didn't actually... I haven't paid attention to much news. I haven't paid attention to, I don't know, things coming out or whatever. So this is basically going to be a podcast entirely about The Boy and the Heron, which is the one thing that I saw in the last week. Scratch that. We watched one episode of the Clone High. We watched the first episode because Kat wanted to show it to me, and I thought that it was fun. Thought it was okay. We haven't watched anything else, anything more of it. Maybe we will. I've seen clips of it that I thought were funny. I guess I do. I will give a quick shout out on Saturday. On Saturday, Kat and I went to an art exhibit that was put on by a friend of mine from high school. So, shout out to Luca. You can find him online at Blue Boyo. Blue like the color, and then Boyo, B-O-Y-O. He makes really cool artwork, and he puts out a ton of cool abstract artwork, and he's a super nice guy. And it was great to see him after 4 years, because I haven't seen him since, oh my god, not even graduation, because we had a lockdown. I had graduation during lockdown in 2020, so before that, Christ, it's even longer. So that was cool. That was fun. He had refreshments at the art exhibit at the gallery, but it was because his kind of a lot of all his branding is in blue, and so they had blue colored lemonade, which was actually pretty good, but we joked that it looked like the Chug Jug from Fortnite. Anyway, the night before that, Kat came over here and we did a bunch of... we went to a thrift store. I might post a picture of this somewhere, on a community tab or something. Usually, I don't really care for going thrifting, but I did find two things that blew me away. Number one, we were looking through the t-shirts, and we found a shirt for Carnival of Souls, the 1960-something horror movie, which I love that movie. It's a 2XL shirt, so it's huge on me. But I don't know, man. I like Carnival of Souls a lot, so that was cool. And the other one is this fucking t-shirt. I looked at the front. I'm like, what is this? It's this big picture of a guy in sunglasses, close-up picture of him. He's wearing sunglasses and a captain's hat. He's got a mustache. It's an old-looking photo. And it's just big text underneath it that says, "Game over!" And I looked at the back and it said, Tim's Bachelor Party, 2003. So I had to buy it. I'll just... You'll catch me walking around wearing the shirt for some guy's bachelor party from 2003. I love stuff like that. I really do. That gives me joy. That sparks joy in me. Marie Kondo? Mary Kondo? I don't know how her name is pronounced. The Sparks Joy lady. The Japanese lady. Who does all those cleaning. Her whole deal is the cleaning... putting your house in order and cleaning up stuff, organizing things. I saw this thing with her, and she was like, "Yeah, I had kids, and I just cannot be fucked. I cannot be bothered to clean anymore." She's just tired. Like, it changes. I thought that was pretty funny. Kind of reminds me of you know, I think it's kind of, I think I haven't really seen an instance of this, but you'll see things like, you know, these monks who are talk about inner peace and meditation and relaxing, and it's like, yeah, it's probably pretty easy for you when you live on a mountain away from society, and someone brings you like food every week. They might grow their own food. I actually don't know. Probably varies. It's probably pretty easy when you're away from society. Try doing that. I'd love to see a challenge. A challenge if you take some like Tibetan monk and make him live in like New York. Like right in the middle of New York. I would love to see that. And not just in a way like, oh, I'd love to see you fucking freak out and get mad. I would genuinely be interested how well like it holds up when you're in like a situation like that. I think that would be neat. Like maybe that's been done before. Like, you know those like Breaking Amish shows? Is there just one or multiple? I don't know, but it's like Amish people, they get a chance to go out into the I say the real world, but you know, into society, into you know, regular person society. See, the great thing about the Amish is you can shit talk them all you want. They'll never find out about it. They'll never hear about it because they don't use the internet. You know, they go into like normal, not weirdo society, and some of them go back, and some of them stay. You know, and I think that stuff is interesting. Take someone and put them in a completely unique situation, almost like that show Wife Swap. Isn't it so crazy? There was a show on television called Wife Swap for years. We used to watch that all the time at my house. And it was like the same formula every single time. It would be, this one's really messy, and this one's really clean, and we're going to put them in opposite households. And, you know, I feel like it's probably worse on the one who's like neat and clean, because the one who's like messy gets to just enjoy, like, I feel like most messy people, they don't like want to be messy that bad. It just kind of happens. Like, you know, if you looked at my room, it just kind of happens. But clean people put effort into making their surroundings clean. And if you put them in some kind of pigsty, that probably is like going to drive you insane. Yeah, Wife Swap. God, dude, 2000s era reality television is so interesting. You hear about these shows, and you're like, how the fuck? Like, I remember the first time I ever heard about Superstar USA. This is a bit of a... I feel like people have heard of this now. The whole premise of Superstar USA was... It was like the cruelest prank ever pulled on anyone. The premise was... It's like American Idol. It's a singing competition show. And contestants go on, and they audition and all that, and they move on. And it's like the same format. Except... the trick is they aren't actually looking for good singers. They're looking for shitty singers. They're looking for people who want to embarrass themselves. Well, not want to. They don't know that they're embarrassing themselves on national television. And so they would always they would turn away the actual good singers and advance the bad ones. And this whole thing led up to like the whole show. You can go look this up. There's videos of this. There's people making videos about it. The whole show was leading up to, you know, like a big American Idol public performance in front of a huge audience. Except the whole show had been done without an audience the whole time. So they get down to the final two contestants, and it's these people who they're really putting their heart and soul into it, but man, they really cannot hold a note. And you're like, oh, and they think that they're really, everyone's been complimenting them and telling them how good they are. And you're like, dude, it's just getting worse and worse. They couldn't film it in front of an audience the whole time because, like, how do you get people to agree to that? It's the most, it's one of the cruelest things. It's so mean. And then in the final performance, they do it in front of a real audience. And you know what they told the audience? They said, these are two people with terminal illnesses. And their, like, make-a-wish thing is that they want to perform in front of an audience as, like, a big pop star. It's crazy. And, like, the host comes out afterwards and he's like, you thought we were looking for a superstar, but we were looking for a big piece of shit, awful, talentless hack. And you're it. And the winner, she's like, what? What? What are you talking? And you think, like, you see the audience and the audience is like, this is a little weird. Does she have cancer? It's a weird way to talk to a cancer patient. Holy crap. Anyway. Yeah, you can go look that up. That is the Superstar USA, I think is what it was called. So, Friday night, we did some thrifting. Kat ate a king's feast at Taco Bell. And then she goes, I want to see a movie. And I was like, all right. She wanted to go to, like, a late showing. I didn't want to go to a late showing because I don't want to leave my house past 7 p.m. to, like, go somewhere. That's who I am. But she really wanted to go see The Boy and the Heron. So, and she had these, like, free Cinemark passes through, like, a family member. She's got, like, 8 of them. So I was like, all right, well, if we're not paying for tickets and it's not, like, that far from my house, so we can go. So we go to the theater. We went to, like, a later, like, a 7:50-ish showing, which for, like, a 2 hour, it's like 2 hours, 10 minutes, something like that. No, it's like 2 hours and 4. It's just over 2 hours. Let's just say 2. For, like, a 2-hour movie, that does feel like a lot, you know, because it's 7:50, but it's gonna start. You know, there's like 10 minutes. It's really gonna start at like 8. We're gonna get out at 10. I don't like getting home later than 11 p.m. You know, I'm an old man. So we got there, and so yeah, we watched The Boy and the Heron. And actually, the theater experience actually wasn't that bad in terms of me being tired and sleep. I was kind of tired near the end, but there was one aspect to it, which is that there were these 4 annoying ass teenagers, and who just, like, were talking through the first half of the movie, and then they finally got up. They actually got up around, like, the 50-minute mark or something like that. What it felt like, and they left. And I was like, thank God, now I can enjoy this movie, and without distraction. I've come to realize that I have such little patience for high schoolers and high school things. As soon as I left high school, it was like this weight was lifted off of my shoulders, and I was like, oh, whoa, I don't have to care about any of that. When you like, I cannot get into high school anime or anything. It just sounds like the least interesting thing. Any kind of story that takes place primarily in a high school, unless there's some, like, solid, like hook. Any kind of, like, serious drama, I have a really hard time taking seriously, because I've been through high school and I know that it doesn't matter. None of that shit mattered that happened in my sophomore year, except for the parts that did matter, that those happened outside of school mostly. There were things that mattered from high school, but most of the stuff that gets focused on in, like, high school media is just absolutely pointless. So I just have such a hard time caring about it, and it's made me much less sympathetic to high school students, specifically ones who are annoying to me. If you're in high school and you're listening to this, which I doubt, just remember, it's okay. It doesn't matter that much. You flunked out on a test. It's okay. It's okay. It's fine. No one cares. No one gives a fuck about the SAT. It's all bullshit. What was I talking about? Anyway, yeah. The Boy and the Heron. So I feel like I should at least preface this with my experience with Miyazaki, and his filmography, which is basically nothing. The only thing that I've seen by Miyazaki is Spirited Away, which I saw when I was like 8 or something. It happened to be playing on Cartoon Network one night, and I remember we flipped to it and we were like, what's this? This is weird. And then we just kind of kept watching it and we were like, that was a really cool movie. Huh. Okay. But it was so long, I was so little that the only things I remember are the scene where the parents turn into pigs. Because that was like the moment where I was like, oh, this is weird. This is different from anything I've ever seen. And the scene where she's chasing the guy through the market, I think, and he turns into a dragon. That's the only 2 things I remember from that movie. So it's basically, I haven't seen any Miyazaki films. Like, nothing that I can actually recall. But I think I have mentioned before that I did watch The Tale of Princess Kaguya, which I thought was a great movie. I thought it was really good. It's Ghibli, but it's not Miyazuki's. So I do not have any real connection to Miyazaki as a director or a person or his films. So that's what I'm going into this with, because I've read interpretations of this movie that have people factor in all this meta shit about, like, you gotta watch the fucking documentary, the 1-hour documentary about him, and then everything will make sense. I don't know any of that stuff. And I don't particularly care for care. So that's my perspective going into this film. Anything else that was an important preface? No. Oh, we watched the English dub. That was Kat's request, because she was really curious about the English voice cast, which is, it's an interesting cast. You know, it's Robert Pattinson as the Heron, Robert Pattinson, Florence Pugh, and Mark Hamill. And who is another? Willem Dafoe was in there, as well as a couple other people playing main characters. They've got Katana from Suicide Squad is the stepmom. This is Katana. Stay on her good side. Her blade traps the souls of its victims. Anyway, so the boy in the that was, if you watched it in the Japanese dub, which I might be I'll talk about that in a second. I might be interested to watch the Japanese dub if I were ever to see this again. Just when I talk about the performances or anything, it's specifically in relation to that. So you might have had a different experience with the film, but whatever. Though I think that's the important things. So how would I describe... Oh, this is a full spoiler thing, if you give a fuck. How would I describe The Boy and the Heron? The Boy and the Heron is a beautifully animated movie. It really is. It's a gorgeous looking movie with lots of, like, really inventive, creative visuals. Stuff that I couldn't tell if it was CG, like very cleverly masked CG, or actually hand-drawn. I think there were some CG elements, but a lot of it is hand-drawn and just absolutely monumental in show of effort from all the animators and Miyazaki. I mean, it took him 7 years to animate this thing. I mean, you know, he's slowing down. He's like 85 or something. And this might be his last movie, but like, wow, like visually, this movie is really cool. And it's a really nice movie to look at. Unfortunately, it's all really in service of a story that I found to be kind of passionless and dull and bad. I didn't like this movie. I didn't like it when I left the theater. And I've been thinking about it the last few days. And I was reading about it. and I think I like it less the more that I think about it. I think it just frustrates me. And seeing people who like it frustrates me because they don't have my opinion, and that's bad. No, it's okay. So, there were a few things that I liked about it. I already talked about the visuals. I guess to talk about the visuals, it's really nice to see fantasy that is not Tolkien-inspired. I find that very refreshing. It's one of the things that I really love about, like, Yoshitaka Amano's work, is that it is totally foreign to me in a way that I think more traditional fantasy has sort of lost, because it draws so much from the same well of inspiration. Just being like this one guy. So it's cool to see a film that has so many concepts and imagery and all this stuff and environments that is completely foreign to me. It's fun to see something. It's like, wow, this is really what things like animation and fantasy I think are perfect for, is showing me something completely alien and unknown to me, but cool. I don't know, cool. Is there a better word that I can come up with than cool? Engrossing, I suppose. It is a nice movie to look at, and I think that really helped it along. The other thing is Robert Pattinson is the Heron in this movie. Robert Pattinson's performance is really good. I just forget he's British all the time. I really do. Kat couldn't tell that it was him. She could not tell that it was Robert Pattinson. He does a great job as the Heron. You can't even tell. I was looking, does he have any prior voice acting roles? I don't think he does. Robert Pattinson voice acting. Because he seems really, I'm trying to look for animated stuff. He seems, I'm not seeing any. No? Yeah, I'm just taking a quick glance. I think this is his first animated role where he's doing voice acting. Man, he sounds experienced. Like, man, what a natural. The other really great performance I thought was Mark Hamill, who plays the grand uncle, the grunkle. I don't know, he's good. He's doing Mark Hamill as in playing an old man, and he's really good. He's a very experienced voice actor. I guess that's the first negative that I have with this film, and it is partially, I should probably get it out of the way earlier because it has to do with the English dub, which is, I don't like most of the performances, and I think the localization is not that great. So it's kind of a combination of the two. So number one is you can really tell who is not experienced in voice acting. Florence Pugh, I found very distracting as playing the mom, like the young mom version of the mom. I thought she just doesn't, I don't know, like she doesn't sound natural. It's so hard to put a finger on it, especially with not having like the literal footage in front of me to describe. But she doesn't sound that natural. The stepmother doesn't sound that natural. That's Katana. There's Saul traps. That's her. Although she does have voice acting roles. The biggest problem is that the biggest problem in general with this movie is the protagonist. But one aspect of that is that I really did not like the performance that the main voice actor gave. He does have experience in voice acting. He probably might have some of the most, besides like, Mark Hamill. Namely that he's in like 60 episodes of something called Super Wings, which is like a preschool baby show. So I don't know if that prepared him for like a dramatic role that well. But his performance is really stiff Part of that probably lies on the second thing, the localization. So I thought a lot of the dialogue in this movie came across very stiff and awkward and stilted. It felt very directly translated from Japanese to English. So one thing, okay, I'm going to flex a little bit of my Japanese study here. So Japanese is one of the reasons it's really challenging to translate Japanese to English is that Japanese is a very contextual language, which means that they cut out a lot of words. Or they just don't include a lot of words that you would include in English. So, for instance, I think I've mentioned this a little bit before, but Japanese sentences often don't have a stated subject. So they'll bring up what they're talking about, like a person, my friend Joe, my friend Joe. And then every single sentence after that, I won't even mention Joe. It'll essentially just be like, he did this. He did this. He's doing like this. He's doing, and I never mention him again. Well, without even the pronoun, right? Because the Japanese has very, very sparing use of pronouns because it's contextual. You usually say like the first time you talk about someone or something, you'll say it by name and then you won't reference it again. And the next time you actually use a subject, you'll say it by name, and that'll be, okay, now we're talking about this thing. A lot of the language is like that. So when you translate it into English, if you were to translate it like directly, it would be nonsensical because there's so many words missing and things that are necessary for a sentence to make sense in English that just aren't there. So you have to fill in a lot of the blanks. So you have to translate it, fill in the blanks. But when you do that, it can sound like overly wordy because it's not, the language, it's phrased in a way where they don't expect there to be a bunch of words, The line is maybe only so long for a reason. But if you were to translate it directly into English, it would totally kill let's say in Japanese, a 1 or 2 word line. If you were to translate that directly into English, you might need 5 or 6 or something, just randomly. Just do a thought experiment. So it's a localizer's job to then take that direct translation and think, what's the intent of the writer here? What are they trying to get across? And is there a meaning to the way that it's phrased in the original that I have to find a way to preserve? So oftentimes, there's like that classic One Piece meme where like Luffy says like, "You're our Nakama" in like the fan subs, and they pull up like a gigantic fucking definition about like, well, what does Nakama? There's no one meaning to the word and it's like actually a very simple word. You could translate Nakama depending on context as like colleague, like crew member, which makes sense for One Piece. But in that context of that like scene, they could have just translated it as like, instead of "you're my Nakama," they could have said, "Oh, you're one of us," or "you're our friend," or something. Or something like that. Like that carries across the same meaning. That's what a localization is. That's why it's different from translating. The Boy and the Heron, it feels like there's a lot of points where the translation is very direct and they didn't really trim it down to make it sound more natural in English. I don't know how much of that is intentional because it does take place in around 1942 or 43. So it could have been that they were trying to capture a more antiquated way of speaking. I kind of doubt it because the Heron doesn't talk like that, but the Heron's like not from the world or whatever. But I found that kind of distracting. And the main character, Mahito, kind of gets that the worst. So what is The Boy and the Heron about? I don't know. Things. It's about subtext, apparently, if what I'm reading online is true at all. So Mahito is a little boy. He lives in World War II Japan. His mother dies in a fire, and his father marries her sister, which I thought was weird, but apparently was just much more common at that point in Japan, to just marry like your sister-in-law. They don't directly... No, they do directly state it, but not for a while. They just kind of like reference it, sort of. They'll be like, "Oh, she looks just like his mother." Yeah, they get married, and he like immediately knocks her up. It's wild, dude. That dude has a type. Yeah, they move away from Tokyo to the closer to the countryside. And he's living at this family estate with all these weird-looking old women who I didn't know if they were supposed to, like... They're drawn so differently from the other human beings in the movie. I didn't know if they were supposed to be, like, fantasy creatures. Because they're so weird-looking compared to everyone else. But no, they are supposed to be humans. They're just drawn really weird. And everyone else kind of looks like a pretty, Miyazaki person. So he's doing it. I'm going to be real. The first, 45 to 50 minutes of this movie are really fucking slow. They are really slow. I think it's supposed to be a contrast, because the second half is when they go to the Wonderland. But man, I do not... Okay, fuck. Where do I even start with this movie? So he's just, like, how do I describe the first half of this film? Because it's so fucking slow. There's, like, a heron, and he's like, that's a weird bird. And it, like, gets on his, he goes to school, and he gets in a fight, because they don't like him, so he bashes his head with a rock, and gets a fucking scar on his head, and it's like, what the fuck? And then he's like, a bunch of shit happens, and this heron is like talking to him and telling him that his mom's alive, and there's this like 5 fucking minute sequence of him building a bow and arrow to kill this goddamn bird, and it goes on and on and on and on. It's so slow, and I don't think I'd have a problem with it being so slow if I don't know. Okay, so around the halfway point of the film, like an hour in, he finally goes to this weird tower that's on the land. And he goes inside, and there's like weird and the fantasy stuff starts happening. I'm like, wait, is this a fantasy movie? I didn't know anything about this film going in, besides there was a boy and a heron. And it's like, wait, it's a fantasy film? And then he disappears, and he goes into this like alternate world that's like a Wonderland, and it's very Alice in Wonderland, right? And I found myself just like for a good like 20 or 30 minutes really annoyed at the movie, because I was like, why couldn't we just fucking gotten to this earlier? Why couldn't we have just gotten to this earlier? Like, it's so wildly different from the rest of the film. And I think it might have to... It's supposed to be like a contrast, like, oh, the real world and then the fantasy world. But, like, man, there are stories that are able to do that in, like, half as long, and I think are way more impactful than that. Like, Alice in Wonderland from, like, the 1800s. So he's in this world. Oh, his stepmom has disappeared into the tower, and he's trying to get her, despite the fact that he doesn't like her. And he goes on this journey with this heron that is this fucking grotesque little man that's inside of it, with this huge nose. I like the heron a lot. I ended up liking the heron a lot. I wish he did more than just kind of hang around, and I don't know, I wish he did more. But yeah, Robert Pattinson was really good as that. Mahito is... I really, really don't like him as a protagonist. He's like a plank of wood. At no point in the film, at almost no point in the film, did I feel like I understood what he was thinking or feeling. He just kind of stares at everything with this blank expression, and speaks in stilted dialogue where he has to say the full word. He has to say mother every single time. Again, like, weird. Why did you translate it like that? What does he even do? Unfocused. I would describe this movie as being very unfocused. There is very little in the way of any kind of, like, emotional motivation in the movie. The whole time, well, by the time you finally get to what the fucking movie is actually about, which is getting his stepmom back, like, that's the tangible goal. That's the tangible goal of the movie, is getting his stepmom back. Which, again, has... It has, like, no... There's, like, no real emotional weight to it. Because, again, he doesn't like her. He's asked about it at one point, like, oh, is that your mom that you're trying to get? And he goes, no, but it's just someone my dad likes. Like, he doesn't even give a fuck. And, like, it's not the weirdest thing in the world to want to rescue someone from, like, a weird magical tower. Like, it's not the weirdest thing, right? That makes sense. I feel like most people would be like, wow, I should probably get my family member out of here, even if I don't really care that much for them, because I'm just, a decent person. But, like, it's a movie, and I need, like, a little more. Like, when I say passionless, I mean there's so little emotion in the movie. It's such a cold, really fucking hollow viewing experience for me. So, like, these gorgeous visuals are going by, and the whole time these creative ideas are happening, and it's so cool looking, and I'm just thinking, like, man, I wish I cared about this, but I just don't. It doesn't communicate enough to me about why I don't even know. Okay, here's the problem. I don't know why the characters care. I don't know why Mahito cares about this so much. Therefore, I don't know why I should care about it. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what he's feeling. There's a whole big stretch of the movie where he meets his mother, who was dead, and it's his mother from the past. It's a version of her from in the past when she's a little girl. And he has, like, no reaction to this. He mentions trying to rescue his stepmother, and she goes, oh, my big sister. At which point, shouldn't he understand, wait, what do you mean? But no, he doesn't. He doesn't ask any questions. By the end of the movie, he's like, oh yeah, you're my mom. Don't you want to come back with her? I'm like, wait, you knew that? What the fuck? You knew she was your mother and you just didn't... What? Your dead mother? You found out that she was your dead mother, said nothing, didn't emote, had no reaction to it at all, no contrast whatsoever, and you're just like, you just kind of go on with your day, on with your little quest. What? What the fuck was with that? Like, why should I fucking care about any of this? I don't. It totally, like, the whole plot just never justifies itself existing. It's so weird. It's such a, like, how, like, you didn't do anything with it. Like, he doesn't even like his stepmother, but he's going on this big dangerous quest where his life is endangered several times. He's not gonna fucking, like, have a reaction to the like, mortal danger he's in. God, no. God, fucking spare Mahito from having to feel anything for 1 second. Even, like, alarm. Even, like, nothing. Oh, it's because he's really sad about his mom dying. So he can't be freaked out when there's a parakeet trying to eat him or something? It's so, I don't know, dude. Like, it's so fucking nothing. Oh, this feels good. This feels good to vent. Because I was like, am I fucking crazy? And I go online and all I see are people talking about how awesome this movie is. And I'm like, what did you like about it? So, like, near the end, what the fuck happened? Oh, yeah, okay, so they finally get to this tower where his stepmom is. And he goes into her room. Okay, so basically what's happening And they established this after this scene, but his granduncle like has created this world inside of this tower, and he's trying to make the world good. It's like, okay, it's this metaphor for creativity or something. He's trying to make the world good, but he's struggling to, and it's a piece of shit hellhole fuck. And he needs an heir to succeed him because he's old and he's gonna die soon. Wow, like Miyazaki. Oh my god, is this movie just Miyazaki fucking venting about the fact that his son sucks at making movies and his studio's gonna fall apart after he dies? Is that what this movie is? Does Mahito suck because he's Miyazaki's son? No! Does Mahito have no character because Miyazaki never saw his son, so he doesn't know what he's like? Holy shit, I don't think that's what it is. But that would be so funny. Apparently it's partially autobiographical. It's based off of a book. I don't know how much was changed for the book to reflect Miyazaki's own life, but Miyazaki's mother also died when he was young, and he grew up in like World War II / post-war Japan. So excuse me. So he Mahito is kind of him, I guess, too, but also the uncle. It's like he's talking to himself, I suppose. And he wants an heir, and I guess that's why, what was her name? Natsuko, I think, was the stepmom. Went to the tower, or she goes to the tower and they imply that she was forced. Does she know about the tower? Was she made to go there? What was the deal with that? How does she feel about any of this? I don't know. She barely has any dialogue after she disappears. There's one scene where Mahito gets to her delivery room, but it's like a grave. It's like a Japanese style grave site, essentially. Like a cave with stones and things to ward off evil spirits and stuff. It's like, okay, that's weird. And he's trying to get to her, and the wards are like sending him away, like he's evil or something. And she wakes up and she tells him to leave and that she hates him. I don't know what that was about. Was she just saying that to get him to go? Apparently, him walking into the delivery room is a big no-no. Why? I have no idea. What was wrong with that? This becomes a big deal because it's like a transgression towards the parakeets who have their own king and kingdom. They're not just like ravenous, hungry little fucks. They have like a society and a king and a monarchy and all that. And they want to use the fact that Mahito walked into the delivery room as leverage to get something from the grand uncle. What that is, I don't know. Why does the leverage matter? But they take... No, Himi, the baby mom, she asks the god of the mountain or the spirit of the mountain or something to let Mahito go back with his stepmom, and then she passes out, and then Mahito wakes up somewhere else for some reason, and I don't know like what that was about. Why did she says let him go back with his stepmom. That has like no effect on anything. Why does she pass out? Is it because the mountain is mad at her? Why? What is like, there's just these plot beats that just kind of happen. And it's like, ooh, fantasy, isn't it weird? It's like you don't know everything about the way the world works. And it's like, yeah, but like the things that are happening directly on screen, I feel like just don't amount to anything and have no build up. And Mahito talks to his granduncle, and his granduncle's like, do you want to inherit the tower, and I'm like, wait, wasn't the... I thought the purpose... I sort of figured that the purpose of Natsuko giving birth was that her son would be like raised in the tower and would become his successor. But now he's asking Mahi to... I guess just, you know, just in case, which is why he's like not really bothered when Mahito rejects him. But he says something like, you would rather live in that dirty, unclean world than create a paradise? And it's like, is that what the movie is about? Is this what the movie was about? It was so... What? Is that what we've been doing this whole time? I don't get it. There was like a scene where they had these little goobers, these little like marshmallow guys, and he was walking... Dude, this movie's such a fucking unfocused mess, piece of shit. It like... when he gets there, he's talking to the young version of the grandma who, like, I didn't even figure that, like, that was the young version of her. I thought it was like an alternate world version of her, but it was her from the past. And the way that that's communicated is that she's wearing the same kimono. Like, she's wearing the same pattern kimono, which is why I thought it was just an alternate version of her, because the idea that she's just been wearing the same pattern kimono for like 50 or 60 years was so stupid that I never even considered that that was a possibility. But it's the young version of her, and I guess was the hint at that. And she has the same name, and she's like, oh, the little white goobers become people? They do this thing where they rise up into the sky once they reach maturity and become born, like in the human world, like on Earth or in the tower. I thought it was like on the human world, and then the pelicans come and eat them, and then he's like, no, the pelicans, and then Hime shoots a bunch of fire into the sky and burns the fuck out of the pelicans. And Willem Dafoe makes a cameo as a pelican. He's like, fucking kill me, I'm in so much pain. And I guess was that supposed to be, oh wait, this world is so pretty and cool, but oh no, there are bad things. Because that's like the first thing that happens when he gets there, is that bad things and scary things and harm start coming to him. Like, immediately. There's like the movie doesn't even try to get you to think that this is some kind of magical wonderland. But then it pulls the rug out, and actually there's bad things and the world is complicated. It never does that. I don't know what the purpose of that is. I don't know. I don't see how any of this stuff ties together. It's such a disjointed, like, there's so many disjointed things happening that I can't even... And I don't think it's just that it's too smart for me. I think it's just poorly written. I just genuinely think that there wasn't, like, a solid idea behind the plot. Or, like, what things were supposed... Like, I feel like, you know, if you want your movie to be all subtext, I don't think it can be all subtext. I disagree with that idea. Like, I'm gonna need maybe I'm some stupid, uneducated rube, but I'm gonna need a little bit of text to like, actually convince me that this is something that's worth investing myself into. And it never really did that. What else is stupid about this movie? I don't know. Have I covered, like, I don't know. I feel like those are the big overarching problems. It never really gives you anything emotionally compelling, and it never, like, I don't know, it's so fucking weird. I'm really trying to find the words. The problem is I'm trying to find words to, like, describe nothing. I don't know how many different ways I can say the movie just, like, doesn't try to make me care about it at all. Uh, Mahito sucks. He's a boring, kind of aggravating main character. Like, he's just absolutely nothing. He has no personality. It isn't. I don't even buy that it's like, oh, he's in pain and traumatized, so he's like repressing his emotions. Cause like, I don't know, dude. It's maybe I guess, but there's so little. Like, there's no moment that I think really exemplifies that. Like, there's no moment to give you. You need a little contrast. That's the contrast is where like the meaning comes from, and there's no contrast in his character. He's just always like that. He's just always a plank of wood. He's just a rock on screen who has no reaction to anything. There's no like, oh, this is the thing where you see this other side of him that exists. There is no indication that Mahito has anything besides indifference towards basically anything that happens. There's one scene that's kind of cute where Himi makes him like toast with jam on it, which this is also, I think, the scene where he's supposed to find out that she's his mom, but he doesn't have any reaction to it. Like, there's no emotion. There's no catharsis. There's fucking no soul in the whole thing. It's so weird. It's like, it's such a weird misfire. At like every single point, the plot is this huge misfire. And I'm thinking about like the first half of the film, which there's so little to say about because it's just, there's nothing happening. There's like one plot beat every 3 minutes. It's so slow. And I think back on it and I'm like, did we need like did we need like that much time dedicated to Mahito stealing cigarettes? So that he could pay off the groundskeeper to help him make the bow, and then the bow, and do we need all of these scenes to happen? Did we need such a long, drawn out scene of Mahito waking up and slowly getting out of bed and walking to his door and opening the door and closing the door and walking to the edge of the stairs, and this isn't at nighttime, and sitting down and having a vision of his mom in the flames? Okay, that's something. And then he wakes up because it was a dream, and then he sees his dad come home from the factory and say hi to his stepmom, and then he gets up, and then he slowly crawls his way back because he's being quiet, and then he opens the door, and then he closes the door. Did we need to see all of that? Could this have been compressed a little bit? It's so long-winded. I know this is ironic, me talking about being long-winded. It's long-winded for nothing. Like, what's the quote? Like, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter sentence or something. Or I would have written less. Like, it's really long-winded in the way that it's the information it's trying to communicate to you, which isn't that profound or meaningful, I feel. It doesn't really earn it. It doesn't earn the length at all. I don't know. I found myself just so consistently frustrated and annoyed with the movie and just wanting it to be better and to hook me in some way. The most likable character is easily the Heron, or the most interesting one. The one that I liked watching, I should say that. That's what I really mean. The one I liked watching was the Heron. Oh my god, dude, it happens it's so weird because it's like you're like an hour into the movie and then you get this scene of young version of the granny saying, you should go on this quest to go rescue your stepmom and the Heron will guide you. And I'm like, this feels like this feels like it should be in the first act. We're an hour into the movie. We're like at the halfway mark. Yeah. I was just trying to pull out at these random points, like especially near the end. It'll just throw like, is the movie about this? Maybe it's about like creativity. Maybe it's about legacy. Maybe it's about creating a world that you want to live in or something. But it's just, it never commits. It never commits to any of these things. Enough to make me feel anything at all. I really wanted to like it. I wanted to like it because it's such a nice looking movie. I liked the first, like maybe 10 minutes. I was like, okay, where's this going? The pacing thing is so weird too. Because like, it almost feels, one of the reasons it felt so jarring was because the whole pacing of the film changes up radically at the halfway mark. Once he gets to the sea world, which is what he calls it. Fucking Shamu. He goes to he gets there and things just start happening, and there's it's like, oh my god. There's a plot to this film. It isn't just like atmosphere. So, the pacing and the way that it's edited, the way that something's edited, tells the viewer a lot about what they're watching and what is important to focus on. Like, okay, remember back when I talked about Before Sunrise, and I was saying that one of the moment where I figured out what kind of a movie it was at the beginning. It's one of the first couple scenes. It's after they get off the train, and they're walking around Vienna, and they meet those two guys who tell them about the play that they're in. And they're like, oh, come to our play. Here's a brochure. It's at like 7 p.m. And then they're like, all right, cool. And then they walk away, and the next shot is like, maybe it takes place maybe a minute later. They're just walking down some street. And I was like, oh, okay. I get what kind of movie this is. If this took place over a longer period of time, they probably would. That's the point where you expect them to just cut to them watching the play. But no. This is a movie about this one day. And as soon as that cut happens, this is the power of editing. As soon as that cut happens, you understand. The movie tells you what it's about. Like, no, you're going to strap in. You're going to watch like 80 minutes, 90 minutes of these two people walking around Vienna and talking and getting to know each other. And it's like, okay, cool. But the boy and the heron does that. And then halfway through, it's like, actually, it's an adventure movie where we're going to go to all these different places and meet all these weird characters and things. And it's super jarring and weird. And again, just made me feel annoyed because I wish we had gotten, like, if this is what the movie is actually about, I wish we would have gotten there sooner. Yeah, a lot of things that it seemed like it was trying to say, but it's so disjointed and just lost in subtext, if it's even there, that it just kind of ends up feeling extremely low impact. I got basically nothing out of the film besides frustration. Yeah, I thought it was bad. I'm sorry, Miyazaki, but it's my first movie that I actually remember of yours. I'm sorry to say, chat, it doesn't kill. Is it a killer or a filler? Yeah. I also don't like the idea that you have to watch like a documentary on the creator's life before you can understand something or get anything out of it, which I've seen, not everyone, but a couple times. Like, it's so weird how every time I was trying to find people who liked this movie, whenever they were actually going into detail about what they liked, it was like I don't know how to describe it. It really rubbed me the wrong way. Like, it was always, it was like, it felt really over intellectualized. Like, the only way that they could appreciate the movie was on like a 5-layer deep level, because the surface level of the movie is so nothing. It's so meaningless that you have to like tie it into like Miyazaki's life, or I don't know. I just kept seeing people talk about grief and trauma and suppressing emotions and creativity and legacies, and like, man, you gotta fucking like dig down in the dirt for that shit. Like, it is, if it's there, it is so lightly communicated that it's, yeah, I don't know. I think it sucks. I think The Boy and the Heron sucks. That's your soundbite. Would I be interested in watching it? Kat asked me if, because I compared it to Nimona, because Nimona was another movie that I thought was very, just did absolutely nothing for me, that I didn't like, and I didn't really dislike. I think I dislike Boy and the Heron a lot more than I feel neutral. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. I felt like incredible apathy towards Nimona, but I pretty strongly dislike Boy and the Heron. But I would rather rewatch it than Nimona. It might be more interesting on a second watch. Maybe it'll be like JoJolion, you know? I didn't hate JoJolion at all. I didn't hate it at all the first time I read it. But you know, when I reread it recently, like I went over, I think it's great, and it's actually might be one of the best, consistently best Araki's ever written. Maybe, I doubt that will happen with The Boy and the Heron, but maybe I don't know. I don't know what I would get out of a second viewing. It might be better to go in with with an idea of what the movie's like. I would be at least open to it. I will say thank you, Miyazaki, for making the first hour of this movie the most boring thing in the world, so that those annoying teenagers would leave the theater. I think he really planned that. That was actually the filter, you know? Maybe I can respect him for that. Miyazaki has a 1-hour filter period to his movies. I don't know. The other ones probably aren't that bad. But, yeah. I don't know if I really had anything else I wanted to talk about. There was a weird issue. It's already too late because it's happened, but so Spec Ops The Line got delisted from every single platform. I got it on GOG before it vanished because it was like $5. The reason it's gone is because of it has like some Jimi Hendrix songs, and they didn't want to pay for the license, so it's just off every digital storefront. So go pirate it. Go pirate Spec Ops The Line. I should play it. I know it's an important game, but I have to get around to it. I got so much shit to play. Oh, don't you feel so bad for me? I have so many good video games that I have to get around to. I gotta play Silent Hill 2. I gotta play Cultic. I gotta play Soba. I gotta play, I gotta finish Dark Souls 3. I gotta play, that Star Wars Dark Forces remaster's coming out in like a month. That'll be cool. I'll check that out. Gotta play Half-Life 2. All of the Half-Life 2s. Gotta play Dishonored. I'm just looking at my Steam library of what I haven't played yet. I gotta play... Just check out XCOM 2. I've owned that for forever. Gotta play... Why do I own Nightshade? Is Nightshade free? I think Nightshade is free. Yeah. So go pirate Spec Ops The Line. Fuck it. They won't sell it to you. Who cares? I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. It was kind of just... It was literally just my one interaction with art this past week was a movie I thought was bad. What else? Go play Plus R. Plus R is a fun game. Yeah, I don't know. An hour, this might be the shortest podcast I've ever done, unless I can find something random that I actually want to talk about. Although I don't think anything's coming to mind. Well, there are things, but not things that I really want to talk about on a podcast. Yeah. I guess if you enjoyed listening to me complain about the boy and the heron for an hour, subscribe. I feel like I'm usually not this negative. I think I'm not this negative. If you have a question, please leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. I will see you guys next week when I hopefully have more things on the brain to talk about after my recovery period. I already know the topic for my next video, and I think it's going to be fun. See ya!